Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the Business of Creativity podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School. I am joined by Dr. Abraham Park. Dr. Park is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs. Greetings, Dr. Park. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks, Ty, for having me for this.
Yes, sir. I'm excited about it. Now, Dr. Park, no one could ever question your credibility in an academic situation. You did your undergrad and your Juris Doctorate from Berkeley, right? Which is prestigious in itself, right? Master in Public Policy from Harvard. And you also did a master's and a PhD at University of Cambridge in real estate finance. I think all those things are impressive. And, you know, I'm of the philosophy that if you surround yourself with sharp people, you can't help but to be sharpened yourself. And I imagine going through all those various programs, you were probably around a bunch of very sharp people, right?
That's true. That's true.
You also started the Master's of Science in Real Estate program here at Pepperdine, which I know a couple of fellow students who are in it, and they are very impressed with it. And I will pick your brain on that. But from what I understand in doing research on you, I couldn't pinpoint when you came to Pepperdine. So that also affected me pinpointing all the things you've done since you've been here. So I wonder if you can give us a little overview of what, you know, how long you've been here at Pepperdine and some of the things that you've done, the positions you've held while here.
Sure. I'll do that. Well, thank you once again for having me here, and I appreciate your time. So I think I went to college at Berkeley, but a really big thing that happened at Berkeley was actually I became a Christian. I met Christ as a freshman in college, and as you know what Berkeley's like, and yet Christ met me. So that shaped a lot as to my sort of purpose of life and what I wanted to do in my life. So I did study economics at Berkeley and wanted to be a lawyer, so ended up going to Berkeley Law School, and then did a joint program with Harvard Kennedy School, so that brought me to Boston for a few years. And after that, I worked as a lawyer and also transitioned into finance because I think I had more of a finance mind and a finance desire. So I ended up moving away from litigation and doing legal work towards business area of raising funds. Was part of a startup in Silicon Valley, also a VC firm. Later on, ended up being part of a hedge fund. And then after that, that brought me to overseas. So I got to live and was educated in all three and worked in all three continents, in Asia, as well as the US, East Coast, West Coast, and also later on in the UK. So later on, after doing some of that, it was actually my wife who brought us to London. It was her desire to wanting to study in England. I was working over in Asia and Korea and decided that I will also join her and think about what I might want to study. And that brought me to studying real estate finance at Cambridge and ended up getting a PhD there. And I was working also for a very wealthy real estate firm down in London, and then was supposed to work for them in their U.S. headquarters in San Francisco when I finished. But then I was introduced. So my intention of doing PhD wasn't to necessarily be an academic, but was introduced to Pepperdine. And so I ended up coming and visiting and realized what a great Christian university this was. Even though I grew up in Southern California, I didn't really know. But meeting the right people here made me think about what it would be like to work in the world of academia and as a Christian as well. So it's a unique place. Even though I went to various different colleges, I would say the mission's different, the vision's different, and how they treat and the perspective was very different. So I ended up joining Pepperdine as a faculty in 2007. So that's when I first got started. You know, I was a professor, assistant professor in finance, and taught in all different programs. And because of my real estate background, realized that Pepperdine didn't have a real estate master's program. And I felt that Pepperdine is positioned perfectly for a Master of Science in real estate. So ended up introducing and creating that program, and was also helpful in initially raising some funds to create a real estate institute. And then we've been having this program since. So that's kind of the background of the real estate program. And part of the reason why I wanted to do a real estate program is because it's a practical degree. It's a very tangible degree. And it's something that fits really well with this area, Southern California, as you can probably experience right now. Yeah. And it has a future in this region. And so I felt that we could create a special program. So
Yeah,
that's the background.
That's excellent. Now, I did see that at some point you were the practitioner faculty of finance, right? Mm-hmm. I imagine that's when you were in a classroom and then having these designs in your brain about this concept, and then you want to take this and sit down with the powers that be and say, here's how I think we could design it, here's the focus of it. So just a little bit about that aspect of it.
Yeah, sure. So I think I think naturally that's kind of my strong point. I'm always thinking about creative ways to create programs, innovate programs, and always seeing opportunities. I think that's kind of my, sort of God-given natural talent. So before coming, I knew pretty much all the programs out there in terms of real estate programs in the United States. I also knew the local programs, and I also understood some of the shortcomings of some of these programs in the marketplace for the students. So for example, USC has a great real estate program, but that program is out of their urban planning department. So it's more of a development design kind of a program. And UCLA has, and also Irvine has an MBA program with a real estate focus, but they don't have a 1-year program that really prepares our students for finance career from a business school, not from a planning school. So I think understanding all the pros and cons of different programs, especially in the SoCal, but over, across the United States and region, made me understand, okay, there is a great opportunity for our students to have a program that's very practical. It addresses the local market very well, and just the wealth that's in this area for people. I think that's kind of my one thing, and also brought me to also create a new program last year, which is MS in Business. But I think my heart is for our students, especially for Pepperdine Christian University students. I want them to excel out in the society and the workplace as well. There are certain things that Berkeley and Harvard and Cambridge brings to a person, which would be, and that allows them to be successful in their career and also to build wealth in their lives.
Yeah.
But I always felt that real estate is an area in which, Ivy League or not, educated or not, there's a potential for anyone to become a billionaire. And so many of the people that I brought in to speak in my program are people like that. They're not Harvard graduates, they're not Cambridge graduates, they're not Berkeley graduates, but they're all multi-billionaires. So I think I saw potential for understanding an area that would perhaps apply to many, many people, broader audience of students, if they understood what it took. But, being an immigrant, coming from an immigrant family, I think understanding house and understanding real estate, understanding kind of the long-term, positioning of an American dream perspective was kind of there. My father did real estate. Even though my siblings are doctors, they all do real estate. So I think it was kind of natural for me to understand and have that perspective and understanding the importance of real estate for any student, any person actually. So I think that was kind of the motivation behind that. And I think also MS in Business is seeing a need. A lot of college students graduating college with valuable skills, but not necessarily business skills. And how do you integrate those two? You only have a few years to major in something. Either you major in business or you major in all these other great areas. Right. So I think as a liberal arts school, you want students to be thinking about great books and about mathematics, about physics, about psychology and languages. But there's no time then to learn businesses. Yeah. So when they graduate, what do they do? Right. What are the options? So kind of seeing that need as well, I wanted to create a program that would address the need of those kind of students as well. So I think maybe that's the MS in Business, 1-year cram course, skills-based, no experience required business degree. Yeah. And I thought that would serve the need. And so I think my goal is to do what's best for our students here, especially, and to excel out there. And that's been my heart and my drive. So I've been more student-focused, I guess, more than anything.
I think that's important. And that leads to a question I wanted to ask you about that is, you could be a professor, which is student-facing, so you have interaction with the students. You could be, as you are now, do you still teach a class?
I do.
Yeah, right. So you could be professor / part of the leadership of the business school and you could be caught up in the minutia of higher education and the minutia of making sure research and what you have to develop to continue to be a professor operates on a successful level. And in that, you could possibly lose the perspective of understanding what it means to be on a college campus and be student facing and interacting with the students. So I do wonder, for you specifically, because you have a great reputation amongst us as students, right? I can vouch for it. I wonder about your philosophy on that student interaction and relationships and fostering students beyond what can be considered a customer relationship, but like, these are very important people here on our campus, and we can't just throw information at them and keep going. But your perspective on that, I guess.
Sure. Thank you for asking that question, because that exactly is a question that I always ask for myself. And what will distinguish Pepperdine above Cal, Berkeley, or Harvard, or Cambridge? So I'm driven by that. I want this university and what we do to be as excellent as anything out there. Partly because this is a Christian university and God is really important. But the other is we have a perspective, at least I have a perspective, that our students are not just products or necessarily just customers. They're all different individuals, and they have a soul, and they have a spirit, and they have all different backgrounds. So every individual is very important to me and important to us. And we can't always put them in boxes.
Right. Yes, sir.
And I'd love to be able to have individual touch points and relationships inside and outside of classrooms to figure out what they're going through, what are they thinking, and what will they be after they leave this place. So I have a narrow window within which for me to create an impactful experience in a moment that will set them up for a future of purposeful living and meaningful living, but also potentially an encounter with God in a way that's different at this university compared to somewhere else. And so because I have that motivation, I'm interested in people and what the students are thinking, going through, and what would they like. I would also want them to be successful. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to deliver them a valuable experience while they're here. So I have a very single individual perspective. Maybe that's just God-given. I know that God thinks of me as an individual, and I'm different. Mm-hmm. And the other is value, because as you know, this is an expensive place to get a degree. All right. So if they come here just to get a degree, there's competition everywhere. There's perception, there's online, there's modality. And so what I strive to do is create a most impactful, valuable proposition that has to make sense for the students and in the marketplace. Right. So I'm very value driven in the sense is they pay us X amount of money to come here. We represent God as a Christian university. And what do they leave with? And where is the greatest value that I can give to them? Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's the relationships that students might forge. And a lot of times it's the job and the network that's out there. But I think something beyond that, hopefully, is my goal. They experience something that's maybe a level higher than I would. And so that's kind of the bigger goal. If I went to Berkeley, so Berkeley is a huge school. The school's set up in a way that's not geared towards the students.
I find that interesting because you think about value versus perceived value, right? Perceived value and numbers are kind of how rankings come out, right? And then the value basically would be us as students. How do we value our experience here? And what it sounds like you're saying is your mix is making sure us as students value our experience here, and that aligns with the perceived value that others externally kind of rank us as. And if you can get those two to align, then you have a wonderful situation for schools, professors, and all who are involved with the university to be a part of, right?
I think that's absolutely correct. In terms of perceived value, there's two different areas of perceived value. Okay. One is just what the ranking people do. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the ranking system, it's very different from, let's say, what the business would look when they look at a student. So if we're very mindful of just the ranking, then we're kind of playing the rankings game. Right. In many ways, we do some of that, like all schools should, but that's not necessarily geared towards what the businesses want here, Los Angeles. They want skills. They want people who are very highly professional. They want people who have ethics. They want people here who are hard workers. So I guess at the end of the day, in the marketplace, we want Pepperdine graduates to prove it out there. And I think we have. in a large part. So there's a reputation for Pepperdine is actually great in the working community. It may not be reflected necessarily in rankings going up and down. So there's two sort of perceived value. But students do look at rankings to come here and to get that education. There is that cycle. But I think I pay a lot more, me personally would pay more attention to the students' value when they come out here for life in the business world. So we're a lot more applied approach, which I think is very helpful for me to be devoted to that. So previously to this, I was the associate dean of full-time programs, which means I oversaw all the programs here in Drescher, all the full-time students. So ranking is something that I was in charge of. And within my stint there, our rankings went up quite a bit. But that's sort of matrix of different factors. That's not necessarily the same, I would say, as the students having a life-changing experience here or feeling that they would love this place. They would want to come back to this place. They want their kids to go to this place. They believe in the values and the mission here, and they get a great job that they love out there. Those are different issues. But I think I would love, in the long run, if we can change the students' lives, that would be more meaningful to me than going up in one or two rankings or whatever, using the matrix that way. But if there are systematic issues that prevent us from doing our best, though, I'd love to be able to fix all of that, because those two things should go naturally together as well. And so I'm in that middle area of my heart being with the students, also dealing with the academia. And I'd love to be able to create a system that works most efficiently there.
To make sure everything is hitting on all cylinders.
And that's what would make me very excited to make it happen. That's where creativity comes. That's where innovation comes.
That's where it all
simplicity comes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the world is changing right now. The geopolitical climate is very different. So we can't always think how it was before will always be going forward at all. A lot of our educational systems are, we follow from the past. And my desire and goal is to be as flexible and nimble and forward-looking.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm an outside looking in guy in terms of business schools and higher education. But I do have experience in leadership, studying leadership and interacting with leaders. And one thing that makes for a great leader is somebody who comes into a role with a wealth of experience and a wealth of understanding about what it takes to be successful in that role. And as the words you use, the matrix of things that allow that organization to be successful or to potentially be successful, and then have experience doing it, I think makes for excellent credibility, but then also makes for somebody who's a great leader, especially when you put in the fact that you care about the student, right? It's a service oriented, but then also understanding the minutia of the whole, right? 50,000 foot, but also on the ground level. It's hard to do both. One thing I do want to ask you about being involved in the leadership of Graziadio, understanding higher education. There's an aspect of stakeholders and constituents, and like the people I talk to who work in college athletics, their mind, like some of them are like, I gotta be able to raise money and bring money in because we gotta be able to support these programs. Now, usually I know on college campuses, there's probably one actual fundraiser for a department, or maybe it's the dean or something like that. But from my understanding, sometimes there are other people who are heavily involved in getting to the point where you're actually asking for a specific amount. And the term I've used, the jargon I've heard is cultivation. I wonder about your involvement with like stakeholder and constituent engagement, whether it be donors, alumni, or whatever, cultivation, fundraising, or any types of things that have helped to elevate Graziadio to new heights in terms of the business school.
There's a couple of points there. One is, one of the strategies that I have for our business school here, at least in the full-time program, was focusing on certain areas that are authentic to us and that we believe in and that are natural to this Southern California, as well as to where we're situated here in Malibu. So those four areas that came to mind, and would be one in the area of real estate, and two, the area of entertainment, media, and sports. The third is family businesses, and fourth was we call it luxury value marketing, but what I meant was sort of extreme value creation, but all of it with a very sort of sustainability focus mixed into all of those, because that's the future here. And that fits well with with who we are at Pepperdine. And that's kind of the people I'd like for them to come to here and experience something special at Pepperdine that they can't experience at USC or UCLA or anywhere they go. And these are 4 areas that I think we can do very, very well. And because of that, I spent last 15 years, because I'm a finance professor and real estate professor, and just through relationships, I was able to build a lot of cultivated, as you said, relationships in those areas, especially in finance and real estate. I was successful in helping to raise money the first time in real estate, but I think we have a great opportunity to raise money in real estate area. And I'd love to be able to contribute there. And generally in finance, because at the end, real estate is part of finance. And so there's plenty of money in the area of finance. I've also started a crypto class. I don't know if you took it, but digital assets class.
I've heard about
relatively
it.
early on.
Mm-hmm.
And we have alums in that area as well, but all kind of in the field of finance area. I think I have a lot of relationships there. In the area of entertainment, media, sports, I think is huge and alive and active in this area. A lot of potential there. Met a lot of relationships there. Family business. So I'd love for us to focus on the kind of people who have family businesses. And that fits with us very well. And want to help them to create family businesses. Perhaps when they become very successful, to be family office. But focusing on people. And we'd love to be known for that. And the other is what we call value creation, extreme value creation. And those areas, I think we have very great chance to make a name. So if you search for these, I think in other schools, there aren't that many schools that can do this. Yeah. So I feel like we want to do that. I think, that's where I think we have a great future to make a distinct reputation. Because at the end of the day, the value proposition is that we have to be distinct. Yeah. If we do what everyone else does, why would they come here? Third, fourth option. So I want the students to know that we're first option when it comes to certain areas, have distinct reputation there. But at the end of the day, we serve a community. We have our part-time programs and online programs as well. We serve a certain community here. And I'm interested in creating a Pepperdine belongingness that's special. That's what I'm looking for. We don't have a football team. A lot of people kind of gather around that. But we do have other parts of athletics. We have a golf team that does really well.
Yeah, right.
But more than that, I think this belongingness is a really, really big issue for us as a Pepperdine. The identity, distinct identity for who we are, and how do we create that, especially for graduate school students. So my hope and desire is that we would be able to create a graduate school belongingness issue and a tackle that I'd love to be able to address, because we have a distributed campus, but we also have a lot of students that are on Malibu campus, around 450 to 475 at any given year, but they don't have any housing. So it's very difficult to build a community, holistic experience of what we're about. And my dream is to create that for us.
I'll tell you what I find interesting about the answer you just gave me is that you've had, I guess is a better way to term it, ideas about the programs that you felt like could be successful based on how Pepperdine is positioned in the world, basically.
Yes.
And in order to create those programs, you went out and cultivated the relationships of people, whether they be academics, whether they be practitioners, or people who could potentially give to help build those programs, cultivated the relationships between them and Pepperdine U to a point to where as things begin to take off, it comes down to a question: are you willing to be involved, or are you not willing to be involved? I think that's an excellent thing in terms of the experience you've had here and wherever Pepperdine and Graziadio decides to go with the programs you mentioned and the business school. Mm-hmm.
And if I could just add one more comment, is there's two things that we'll always have, I think, here, no matter what we do end up being specialized in this area or that. Two things that we'll always have. One is just our commitment to God and what Christian university should look like. We're always challenging ourselves for that. So I think we'll always keep that. So kind of people here are struggling with that, are always tackling that, answering that question. We want excellent. The other thing is the entrepreneurial spirit that we do have here. From the founder and to all the students that come, we'll always keep those two things alive at all times. Entrepreneurial. We want people to be entrepreneurial when they come here.
Be creative.
Yeah, be creative, ready to start their own business or apply what they learn in their own area, whatever. So I think those two things are that kind of the spirit of this Graziadio will always keep. So
the faith being at the forefront.
Faith part and sort of the entrepreneurial spirit will always be at the core of what we do. And of course, since we're in Southern California, industries and areas that are very, has a bright future, we want to be part of, whether it's real estate or, family businesses.
So I'm a leadership guy. So
Yes.
I'm always asked questions about leaders, and you've been in this role for a while. You've been in a number of different roles throughout your career. You've been around a number of different people. And one thing I always want to find out from people is about making decisions, right? Because sometimes as leaders, we are judged by the decisions we make and really how we evaluate those decisions to decide if it was a good decision or not. So I wonder about your approach to tough decisions that you've probably had to make in your tenure, maybe here at Graziadio, in terms of, do you gather information? Are you a decision tree guy? Are you just all numbers? Is it data or is it intuition? Like, tell me about your decision-making process in terms of making tough decisions.
Yeah. General decision-making approach I have is I pray for every decision, small or big. And two, I want to be selfless as much as possible. So I try to leave myself out of the equation, do what's best for the long-term future of this institution. That's second. And third is, to make those decisions, you have to have the right information, meaning who I get my information or where I get my information is really important, because you can have a very selective information or incomplete information. And so I try to spend a lot of time trying to gather information from sort of ground level as much as I can, because we can have a system where we just listen to each other and get report outs from very select people who've been funneled by sources that we don't know, just report it upwards. So what I do is I try to spend a lot of time on the ground level as much as possible. I think my father just taught me that. As I said, he did all of his business at McDonald's. He hangs out at McDonald's every day because he says he knows how the American economy is running. And I think I've always had that trust. So I like to spend a lot of time here. I live on campus, so I like to just hang around and see how things are, how the students are doing. I like meeting people and saying hello as much as I can, because that's where I pick up a lot of information as well, and as well as all the executive administrative level information, and then prayerfully leave myself out of the picture and make a decision that's best for the long term future of this institution or organization. But I'm a people's person, I guess. So I value relationships. So I think of a lot of relational issues a lot. At the same time, my mind is very finance oriented. So I think of a lot of the financial proposition, sort of values or future value of a decision, the impacts. Those are mixed in. It's jumbled in together for me.
Which is excellent. And it goes back to what we said earlier, that you're operating at a 50,000 foot level, but also operating on the ground floor, right?
I think that's important, because these days people make decisions without having been here, or they make decisions or just getting reports. But it's not the same, when it comes to people and their experience. So we're essentially, at the end of the day, we're not selling just information. Higher education is not selling just information. So we're selling a lot more than information when they come here. So you need to feel it, experience it. So I think being on campus and living on campus has helped me a lot to just and like meeting you, that's a great joy for me to meet with students and people like you as friends. Because I always think that after you finish the school, that we'll be friends. That's my investment. My investment is that for my long-term friends.
We return, right?
Yeah, they're not. I'll give you a grade and I'll see you later. And I don't think that way.
All right.
So hopefully you'll be my friend after this podcast.
I will be your friend. Yes, sir. Well, Dr. Park, this has been an excellent conversation. There's a lot I picked up in terms of how you operate, how you think, people first. Faith is important, entrepreneurial mindset, 50-foot level, ground level, how you make decisions, your thoughts on a lot of things involved in Graziadio. I think I can speak for a number of students who know you and have classes or have interacted with you to say we really appreciate your presence here in terms of being an ear for us to vent to, right? Or making things happen when higher education and academia seems to get in the way of things, right? And we need things to happen. So I really appreciate you joining us here on the Business of Creativity podcast.
Thanks, Ty. Thanks for having me.
That was Dr. Abraham Park. He is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs for the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School. And of course, this is Ty Brown with the Business of Creativity podcast. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.